everyone. Okay, so if you want to kind of we'll jump right into it here. So Bowery's been around for about 7 years now, and I know that your history professionally hasn't always been kind of in the agricultural industry or in sustainability. So why Bowery? What kind of made you want to start this company and make this, your life practice?
Yeah. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was a young kid. I was always hustling around long before I knew what entrepreneurship even was. And building and creating, I think, was sort of in my blood and DNA. Been working in and around technology and innovation for the better part of almost 20 years here in New York. And I did a little bit of venture capital investing and then actually went to Clear Channel, big radio group, and built iHeartRadio. And ran iHeartRadio right as the iPhone was coming out and sort of the smartphone world was emerging. Super fun, super interesting, but wanted to build something of my own. And so I left and I started an enterprise software business, marketing technology. We raised about $25 million in venture. The business grew, was working with big CPG brands, retail brands, financial services brands in loyalty and analytics. And sort of 6 years in, picked up my head and said, I don't want to spend the next 10 years of my life doing this. And more importantly, I'm a big believer that technology and innovation can solve hard problems and important problems. And I wanted to put my time and energy towards something I had a passion for, but also towards something that I thought really mattered more broadly to society. And I started to spend a lot of time just looking and understanding agriculture and the food system. And the more I dug in, the more excited I got. And that sort of kicked off the journey that has led to Bowery.
So I know that kind of Bowery's main mission is to kind of change the agricultural industry from the ground up. So if you could kind of speak to us a bit about the indoor farms and urban farming and kind of what conditions it sets for the produce and the products there and how you guys are really innovating that from the ground up.
Yeah, so at Bowery, we think about our business in sort of three core areas, which is our farms, the Bowery operating system, our technology, and then our brand itself. And so in the simplest form, we build smart indoor farms, warehouse scale, that we locate close to the cities and the communities that we serve. We stack our crops from the floor to the ceiling. We grow under lights that mimic the spectrum of the sun. And so we can grow 365 days of the year, completely independent of weather, completely independent of seasonality. And what allows us to grow this way, we grow completely pesticide-free using a small fraction of water compared to traditional agriculture. And what lets us do this is a combination of robotics and automation, which we design and develop, as well as the Bowery operating system. And the Bowery OS is a combo of our software, our hardware, artificial intelligence and computer vision, and the entire sensor and control system, which is monitoring, maintaining, and essentially orchestrating our entire operation from before a seed is ever planted all the way until we deliver our product to our partners. And it's the combination of those two pieces which have really allowed us to change the way we think about farming. And from a brand perspective, we actually sell under the Bowery brand. And that for us is really important, and it's an important piece of the puzzle because food is changing and consumers are asking questions like, hey, where's my food coming from? Or how is it made? Or how is it grown? What's in it? Or what's on it? And if you look particularly at the traditional agricultural system, it's designed in a way that it can't really answer these questions. And we have a real advantage at Bowery because we were talking just a bit ago, yes, we're reimagining farming, and if you were to see a picture of one of our farms, it certainly doesn't look like what probably everyone here grew up imagining or seeing a farm look like. But what we're really doing is not just reimagining farming, but we're actually reinventing the entire supply chain. And so we're rebuilding a supply chain that is much shorter, it's much simpler, it is much safer, and it's ultimately much more sustainable. And so we can deliver a crop to everyone here a day or two after we harvest it versus weeks or months of time in the existing supply chain that we rely on to move food, not only around the country, but around the world, really.
So I know that obviously this is a non-traditional way of farming. Kind of as we look into the future, how do you see non-traditional farms and traditional farming kind of coexisting? And then I guess a two-part to that question would be, given things like climate change and unpredictable weather patterns, do you see traditional farming still being something sustainable as we kind of move into the future?
Yeah. I get asked a lot the question of, so this is going to replace all of farming. And we're talking about a many, many trillions of dollar global industry. So the notion that, it's a zero-sum game is a little bit false. And I think particularly when you're talking about climate matters, like these are issues that are so large and global in nature, they require partnership from public and private in many different industries in many different countries. So I would certainly never suggest that we are the single answer to farming and climate change. Far from that. But indoor farming is unquestionably going to be a really important part of the food supply chain moving forward. When we look at sort of the opportunity in general, it's about $100 billion a year of crops just in the U.S. that we can grow, and it's about $1 trillion globally for crops that are good candidates for indoor farming today. No question that number could actually increase. We don't include things like the commodity row crops like corn and wheat and soy. We don't include necessarily orchard crops or stone fruits, though technology is an interesting way of surprising us, and it's entirely possible that down the line those things become more in focus for us, though it's not the place we're spending our time on now. I think when you think about the intersection between traditional farming and what we do, there is a real challenge, large-scale farms, when you think about the amount of resources that are consumed, right? So agriculture is the largest consumer of resources globally by a huge margin. We use about 70% of the world's water every single year through agriculture. We put about 6 billion pounds of pesticides down annually around the world. And that's obviously in the soil and destroying a lot of the nutrients that we rely on to grow. That's in our water supply, streams, lakes, rivers, and our oceans, and it's on the food that we're all consuming. And because of the chemically intensive way that we farm, we've actually lost 30% of all of the arable farmland around the world in just the last 40 years. So the traditional system itself is already being stretched and strained. You look at climate change and what's happening right now, that stretch and strain is going to continue. And then when you overlay the fact that our population around the world is growing, people need more food, many countries, as they develop, are changing their diets from more cereal grains to fresh produce, meat, fish, things like that. We do need more food. It's a really important piece. And the system that we've built today can barely keep up with the world today, let alone the world that's coming tomorrow. And so change is important. But again, not only going to come from one company or one industry, it's going to come from many, many different places.
And I'm kind of going off of that a bit. So, one of the biggest problems with the food industry in general is, and especially in urban centers, is that there really is a limited level of accessibility to not only nutritious food, but food that is safe and food that also tastes good. Kind of what specifically is Bowery doing to kind of help ease accessibility and kind of address that challenge?
So one of the things for us that's incredibly important is how do you democratize access to high quality fresh food? And so how does everybody have access to the best quality fresh produce? And it shouldn't be that if you can go to the Union Square Green Market, then you get to eat food like that, but if you can't, you don't. And I think one of the mistakes that's often made is there's this assumption that the only people who care about quality food are people in wealthier demographics. And the reality is that's actually not true. That people of all different economic stations in places across this country and also across the world all care about what they're eating and eating quality. And so not everybody has access to it. And so we really focus on how do we advance that access. And that comes from a few different ways. First of all, just through our technology and through what we build, we put our farms close to the communities that we serve. And so we're providing much, much more high quality, fresh produce, locally grown, much more sustainably grown year round to those specific communities. That's an important step. As our technology continues to advance and improve and our costs continue to improve, our ability to drive our price further and further down also emerges. But even today, we sell our product at or below the cost of field-grown organic, and it is a much higher quality product as it is. The other piece for us is we spend a lot of time partnering with nonprofits across all the communities where we are. And so we work with the Maryland Food Bank. We're one of the largest donators to the Maryland Food Bank, or we're the largest for fresh produce. We work with a program called Healthy Corners as a part of DC Central Kitchen, and they actually set up refrigerators in community bodegas and stores where there aren't actual grocery stores, and we'll sell our products into at a wholesale price into those stores. So people who otherwise would have to get on a bus or travel reasonable distances to even find produce at all, let alone quality produce, now will have access to that product right away. And so we also work here in this area with Table for Table and Teams for Food Justice. So committing to the communities where we are and to helping those communities is also a part of that puzzle.
Awesome. And so for people who might not know, where are your farms located, and are you selling direct to consumer at the time?
So we have a set of farms right down the road here in Kearney, New Jersey, that serves the tri-state area, so sort of New York, Connecticut, Westchester, Manhattan, New Jersey. We have a farm in Maryland, which serves much of the Mid-Atlantic region. We are building a farm in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania right now, which will be done soon, is going to continue to support sort of this region and the Mid-Atlantic region, and we'll be building and launching new farms soon.
So I know that you just recently received Series C funding for $325 million.
Yep.
Numbers correct. What was that like for you? You know, did you ever expect it to get this big and to grow at such a rapid rate? Kind of what was your thought process with that?
Yeah, I've been doing this for long enough that I have not lost on me that the sums of money that companies are raising right now are pretty gargantuan. My Series A of my first company was $6 million, and people were amazed that the company had raised $6 million, which I don't even think registers on the scales anymore. So it's certainly a large sum of money, but I think what's particularly powerful about it is an indication of not only how important what we're doing at Bowery is, but really the incredible progress that the team has made to get to this point, and the hope and belief in the progress that we're going to continue making in this next stage. And so I think, for me, this was always about building a generational business and building a generational brand that doesn't just have a footprint in this area, but has a footprint around the country and a footprint around the world. So this is sort of where we've always hoped to continue to move towards. But the truth is, it's still early in our journey. We've got a lot more work to do and a journey left to go.
And within the next 5-10 years, looking out, what kind of challenges do you anticipate for the company and kind of for this industry as a whole?
So the first things for us, we're going to be expanding across the U.S. Much more rapidly, much more aggressively. That's a big point of focus for us. That said, the problems that we're solving certainly aren't just tri-state area problems or U.S. problems. They're international problems. And so we're also going to be expanding around the world, and looking at international as a really important component of what we're building and what we're doing. Tied to that, though, is also crop expansion. So we primarily focus on leafy greens and herbs commercially right now, but we have grown hundreds and hundreds of varieties of crops outside of that. So everything from fruiting crops like tomatoes and berries and peppers and cucumbers, root vegetables, tubers. I mean, there's a huge array of fresh produce that we can grow. And so I'm not only excited about seeing expansion, from a geographic perspective, but crop expansion as well is really important. And this is one of the things that I should have mentioned when we were talking about access, is one of the problems with produce today is it doesn't particularly taste like much. It doesn't particularly taste very good, and it isn't particularly exciting, because what produce is done, or what we've done to produce rather, is we've really been focused on how do we get mass amounts of cheap food quickly. And that means that outside, what we care about is, does this product resist pests, does this product resist drought, and does it travel and show up and look good on the store shelf? And when we optimize for those factors, we do it at the expense of quality and taste and varieties, which is really, if you look back 100, 200 years, like what produce was meant to be. And even you can go look at regions in the world, Italy, places like that, that's what produce still is. Because we don't have to worry about drought, because we don't have to worry about pests, because we don't transport our product, we work with global seed companies to find interesting varieties, exciting flavors, and to help bring people produce that isn't just fresher and more nutritious, but it is much, much more delicious as well. And that vibrancy of flavor helps get people excited about eating healthier food. And so that's an important part of what we're doing and what we'll continue to do as we move forward.
And just a fun one to kind of throw it in there. What is your favorite part? Like, what would you say makes you most excited about getting up every day and going to work? What do you love most about?
No question, the people. The group of people that I work with at Bowery are really amazing. It's fascinating to see such an interdisciplinary group of people come together around a single problem. So, we have artificial intelligence engineers and software engineers and mechanical engineers and supply chain experts and plant pathologists and plant breeders and plant biologists, and everybody's coming together, working with one another, exchanging ideas, all collectively to solve this common problem. And when you put that kind of passion and energy and brain power in one place, all pointed in one direction, like the team just does incredible things every day. It's easily my favorite part of what I do every day.
And one last one. I know that, there might be a lot of people there that are looking to either make a career shift or an industry shift and kind of shift their focus to kind of making something they're passionate about, their life's work. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that kind of is looking to make that jump or to pursue something completely different, kind of like what you did?
Yeah. I guess if you're talking from an entrepreneurial angle, what I say very frequently is that no matter what you're wanting to do, there's always a moment where you have to jump off the cliff. And I think, sometimes I'm talking to people and they want that jump to be more like a step. And, so do I, right? Like everybody wants to de-risk things to the maximum amount. And the reality is, like, when you're building something new and you're innovating in an area, like there is only so far that you can take your understanding before you actually start doing doing the thing itself. And it becomes sort of asymptotic almost. And so this recognition that you owe it to yourself to do work, to understand both the reasons that this could work, but equally the reasons that it may not work. And you need to listen to the critics, listen to the challenges, listen to both sides of the equation. But at some point, you have to jump. And there's no avoiding that piece of it. And I think sometimes I see people get kind of caught in this stasis where they're waiting for like that moment that says, oh, this is definitely going to work. And the truth is that doesn't come. And in hindsight, everyone can sort of overlay how it feels like there was a moment like that. But that moment doesn't come until well into the journey usually. And so you got to just go at some point.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.